Hi, guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Josh Horowitz. Thanks for checking me out, checking my conversations out. Every week, I talk to the best actors on the planet, including this guy who's moving around right now. Do you see him? It's Tom Felton. Tom, there he is.
Good afternoon. Hello, mate. That's quite the intro.
An amazing intro. If you guys can do us all a favor, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss any of our episodes of Happy, Sad, Confused, or else you're going to miss out on amazing conversations like this one. A big welcome to Mr. Tom Felton. Tom, thanks for doing this, man. It's good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, Josh. It's all right. It's all right. It's all a bit surreal, isn't it? But yeah, no, thanks for having me on.
You're an official author. You've added this to your list of many accomplishments. As I told you a couple weeks back, I read your book. It's amazing, man. Here it is for those that are watching.
Thanks for taking the time to do it. Yeah, and well, you're part of it in a way, aren't you? As far as I don't remember when the first time we spoke, but I was definitely in the early Potter years. So it means a lot to me that you read it. So thanks.
No, it's a great read, and the highest compliment I can give is it felt like a conversation with you. I heard you in my head as I was reading it, and this doesn't feel like someone else dictated the stories of Tom Felton. It's your voice, man, and it's a good one.
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear that you can vouch for that because you've had enough conversations with me over the years. But that's kind of how the book is obviously intended to be, because it's all basically my scraps of paper that I've kind of put together over the last 10 years. So to hear that from the horse's mouth that it sounds authentic is good. It's good to hear from you, buddy.
You just called me a horse right off the bat. It's
an expression.
For those folks watching live, there is a button that says ask a question. If you want to ask a question of Tom, please do so. But I've got more than enough because I've known this guy for a long, long time. And it's really fun to go on the journey with folks like you, man, to see the ups and the downs and to see you in a good place and reveling in all things Potter in this way. It's like I've talked to so many people that are so tied to these iconic franchises, and it's a complicated relationship for folks, and I feel like you are like the template for how to just kind of make peace with what's an insane, overwhelming, not a burden, but it is a burden. I mean, there's not a day that goes by where Potter is not a part of your life. Safe to say, where it's not referenced 20 times a day when you're walking around.
It definitely is brought up every day. It doesn't help if you've got a Slytherin phone case, it does. It comes up every day. And I don't think anyone saw. I know when we finished filming, there was a sadness and a real sense that not that Potter was going anywhere, but the fandom or that the levels of sort of crazy fan exposure that we'd had would slowly start dwindling down over the years, and we finished over 10 years ago. So to see even where it's gone from there, the fact that the stories and the films are being passed down from one generation to the next, none of us saw that coming. So I get used to the new fandoms every day, but I am definitely in a lucky enough position to say that I think it's awesome.
That's the right attitude, I would think. I mean, we first started to talk towards the end of the films. I spoke to you in the last few, and I'm just curious. For young men and women that have to navigate that world, I'm just curious, like, what it was like for you handling press over the years. Like, were you media trained? Were you the good boy on the press circuit, or
you were a more pleasant memory that I have of my earlier. No, actually, you really did. You and Ben Lyons were the first two media people, shall I say, that didn't feel like I was on the news or part of some old DVDs extras type thing. But no, not really any official media training. I learned a lot of my how to interact with people like that on junkets, really, where you sit in these hotel rooms and they have a new journalist come in every 7 minutes. And I know you know this world very well, Josh, and it's very hard to actually have a decent connection or a conversation with anyone because you just have such limited time. So you often find yourself just saying the same thing over and over and over again. But in rare occasions, you do get a chance to see the same person a few years in a row, and you build up a rapport, and I think you sort of train yourself to say the same thing, but in different ways, in as many different ways as possible.
And then coming out of, so again, like I remember in particular the last few films, and what a capper it was. I remember covering the premiere here in New York. I'm sure there were a few premieres. Did you take me back to that headspace when it was over? Like, were you prepared for the next chapter? In retrospect, would you have done anything differently to prepare yourself, either from a emotional or career perspective, to better handle it, or did you just handle it as best you possibly could, you think?
Oh, crikey. You said you were going to go gentle. It's very hard to say. The last days of filming were obviously just difficult and awkward in a British way, of everyone trying to say goodbye to each other. The last premiere, I remember, especially the one in London and the one in New York, were such celebrations. There was such we weren't just even celebrating the one final film. We were celebrating all the fans that had come and supported them over the years. So it felt like a really, really good way to say goodbye. There was something very, very bittersweet, obviously, but something really, really beautiful that we got to do it in style. Take more pictures. That's always the advice that I would give him, the younger version of Tom. Just take a few more pictures.
There aren't enough pictures of you from back in those days. There are very few if you look on the internet.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It's often cited, but I would agree with this assessment that, like, the casting of the core cast of Potter is just, it's one of the miracles in modern filmmaking. But both in terms of just like great actors for the right parts, but also good and decent human beings. And I'm referring, in particular to talking about, you and Rupert and Emma and Dan, folks that, all very different temperaments. And I have different, it's funny, like I have like very different kind of rapports and relationships with each of you, because you all are very different from each other. But, to a man, you've all handled this very well, like all things considered, as well as can be expected, I would say. And when you look at your group, how much of that is just dumb luck of them just, or how much of it is, I don't know, the way these movies were made, the things that were said to you over the years? I mean, why did this group kind of come out so sane and relatively well adjusted?
You do quite uniquely know us all individually and grown up with it. You should be doing a book. You should write the chapter for this. The
sequel, the paperback. Okay,
Beyond
I'm ready.
the Wand 2.
Yeah, here's my competing book.
It's a great question. It's a big question, and it deserves a big answer. I think the initial casting, none of the cast would get angry at me saying that none of us were particularly talented. We were at the right stage of our acting development, and we looked the right way, and we weren't too shy. I think the biggest contribution to the fact that fingers crossed, like touch wood, none of us have turned up to be maniacs, really, and we've all sort of managed to enjoy all of this, is the company that we kept was constantly around us. Chris Columbus obviously set the tone. He's the one that directed the first two films, but he basically cast us together and put together a group of kids that weren't necessarily particularly talented in the acting world, but they melded and they melded together really well, and were able to create all these different characters. One of the stories that I've written about in the book is so Chris Columbus tried this trick, where there's like 20 kids together, and he'd say, "Okay, I'm just going to leave you guys for a second. We're going to go talk over here," and the producers and whatnot would go into one corner, and the other guy was still holding the boom mic, like the huge boom mic over our head. So I knew exactly what was going on straight away. And this little brushy haired girl came up to me and was like, "What's that?" And I looked at her very arrogantly and said, "It's a microphone, you idiot. What do you think it is?" And I met this. I'm pretty sure they heard that, and I'm pretty sure that helped me get the part of Draco Malfoy. It also turns out that I saw that girl 2 months later, and her name was Emma Watson. And so we didn't get off to the greatest start.
Safe to say the relationship has improved since then. Slightly.
She didn't hold it against me too bad. So.
Can you give me a sense without revealing? Look, I mean, these are personal relationships. I don't expect you to divulge too much. But like, again, like I have these, much lesser extent relationships with each of these folks. You have different kinds of relationships with each of these actors, these young people that you grew up with. I'm curious, your relationship to Dan, like my sense is like Dan, it's always like, what's like keeping up with Dan, keeping up with the latest, like cool project with Dan, like what's your relationship with Dan? And then Rupert obviously is a dad now. Emma has a very special place in your heart. Can you give me a sense of sort of the different kind of dynamics
we're all close friends. I suppose in a nutshell, I'm trying to go back in my memory of when I last saw them all. Weasley twins. I played golf with the Phelps twins about a week ago, and don't ask who won because it didn't end too well there for me, as it never does. They're very good. I saw Daniel recently. We see each other a lot. I'm a huge admirer of how different we all are really as characters, but yet put us all back in one room when we did the 20-year anniversary. We did this classic sort of British 5-minute awkward reunion thing of going like, "Hey, all right," and then it was just straight back into what had always been like, completely effortless. So we're rarely in the same room at the same time, but when we are, it's pretty effortless. I'm a huge admirer of Daniel for who he is, but also for his work, like all of his theatre work, his choice in films, the stuff that he actually puts his name to. I'm always excited to see what he's going to do next, which is it's a cool thing to be one of his biggest. Who would have thought Draco Malfoy saying that I'm one of Potter's biggest cheerleaders? What's happened, Josh?
You betrayed your bloodline. How dare you?
Good God.
Have you seen Weird Al yet? Have you seen the Weird Al movie?
No, I was just thinking. Have you?
Oh, good. Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, I look forward to it. So that's another exciting one to go to. Yeah, and Emma and Rupert. I see them all as and when I can. Emma was a big inspiration for me to finish the book actually, and not just tell the small stories or the shorter version of the stories, because a lot of these started from like scraps of paper that I come off stage from the Comic-Con, which we've seen each other at as well, and the stories would flesh out a little bit more in my head, so I'd quickly take that to a piece of paper, and once she read those pieces of paper and laughed her ass off, she said that I should continue writing more. So that's kind of a nice encouragement, and I'm very glad she did forward.
She wrote a lovely foreword. Were you worried when you got the file? Were you like, oh God, what did she say?
No, I didn't even read it, to be honest with you. I just was grateful. I mean, I did once it was in there, but I was just very grateful that she would even consider it. But they were very, very touching words. So
she also, as I understand it, encourage you, as you say, beyond kind of these great anecdotes, and there are tons of them in this about the making of Potter, of getting to like, the weighty stuff, like the really like stuff that you could have totally not even included and still had a book that many people would have wanted to read. The true personal ups and downs. And you've been really, and I texted you about this, I think this book is really going to help people that destigmatize rehab and the tough times that people go through. Was there an iteration of this book that didn't go there? And was it tough to make that decision to finally discuss it?
Not really, because I'm a bit of a writer, so I write down more or less all of these stories anyway. Compiling them together was the sort of tricky part, and making them have a full narrative, putting them to an actual chronological timeline was tricky. But the choice to sort of bring in more about my own personal life afterwards wasn't really in an attempt to preach or to try to be any sort of self-helpy. It was just more a case of, it was important to me that if the book's about me, then it has these chapters have to be written. It was only afterwards, to be honest with you, it was other people that were encouraging. Lots of my friends, my family were very supportive of saying, "Oh no, you have to put those chapters in." I mean, the book opens up with me getting in trouble with the law. and that's not a story that I should have ever really shared with anyone, but there it is.
Can we say what it is? Because it's a hell of a way to. I admire any book that begins with the tale of a young man stealing pornography and ends with rehab. This is the mark of a great storyteller.
I never thought of that, but I'm going to use that quote as one of my taglines now. Yes, essentially, I was a young teenager trying to show off to some cool kids, and I thought by stealing a DVD of a nefarious kind would be a quick way of impressing them. And I, needless to say, I wasn't successful. I stalked the aisles for hours, and I got immediately picked up by security. And this is when I had bright blonde hair. I think we were doing Postle 1. So there was I was banned from the store. And
that's the aspect that's amazing, that you were already in Potter and could you imagine? I mean, you can't imagine.
I was terrified, definitely. Again, I was encouraged by my friends and family, my brothers especially. They were like, you have to put that chapter in. That's a good one. Also, my mum didn't know that story, so she was a little bit pissed, to be honest. she thought it was she thought that was a bit too much, but I got away with it.
And then on the flip side, look, the stuff towards the end, you handle with a lot of. I mean, there's humor even in these dark stories. Like, I mean, it's intense stuff. I mean, this story of you going to rehab and then bolting and trying to get all the way back from what was it, Malibu to Barney's Beanery. I mean, is like, that's a short film right there that I wanted. Like, I mean, I don't want you to have to rehash it if it's painful or anything, but it's like, what was it like to revisit what must have been one of the most scary, intense moments in your life?
It took a little bit of time, definitely. It's one thing. I found writing a lot of these memories of mine, especially the ones that were slightly, more traumatic. I found writing them down to be really cathartic, and that part not to be too stressful. You've got to be slightly disciplined and force yourself to do it, because it's quite sometimes easier to just put The Simpsons on and ignore it. But once you commit to it and say, like, I'm gonna write this part of my life down on paper, that bit is it wasn't too bad. Reading it back, like I did the audiobook, and I really struggled for quite a few chapters, either through laughing or giggling my way through the antics about my brothers and my early shenanigans, or just getting emotional about my mom and my parents and how much they've done for me. So there was quite a few times in the audiobook recording session where the producer, he couldn't see me, he could just hear me, but he could hear me also go, "Tom, you're right in there? Yeah, just give me a second, I'm fine." So it took a lot longer than I thought to get it done. But writing it down wasn't too bad. But seeing them written down and reading them out was a little more tricky.
I like I really love the chapter headings throughout the book.
Cool.
One of my favorites is Fans, or How Not to Be a Real Dick. Which I feel like any celebrity should have that chapter, read that chapter and know, because this is an important lesson.
Yeah, it was an idea I threw out early, only because I thought both chapters have a version of what I think it should be called, and then what I also think it should be called, and
what the real title is. What it really
I was quite encouraged actually to use both, so that was helpful. That first chapter there, Fans and How Not to Be a Real Dick, was all started with a young boy who got rather upset with me at the end of the first Potter premiere, and calling me a dick, and me thinking that was terrible, and getting very upset about it, and coming to realize that obviously the more this 6-year-old thought I was a dick, then the better job that I must be doing. That's what my gramps told me anyway.
Well, there is an advantage to playing. It's in some ways it's harder to play to be a virtuous character for decades, and people expect that. You have license. If you're having a bad day, you can be a dick, because that's what Draco should be. Draco should be a bit of a dick.
I can get away with murder. Is that what you're saying?
I mean not murder, but
well, not
close to it.
Yeah. It's very true. I did wonder about that because Alan Rickman was always very.
He played into that.
Okay, all right. He's always seemingly very sulky, but I wonder if that was just a bit of license there, being like, well, I can be because I'm Snape. So
you have great anecdotes about virtually all the adult members of the cast, these luminaries, including Alan Rickman. It sounds like Alan Rickman and Ralph Fiennes are the top two most intimidating folks. Is that fair to say? Are they the upper echelon of the folks that you don't want to catch, get on the wrong side of, say the wrong thing to? Not they're ornery people, but they're scary. They're a little intimidating.
Yes. When also you should reckon when in costume. I didn't. Right. I never met Ralph Fiennes. I never met Ralph Fiennes till the final premiere, I think. And I even asked someone then, do I recognize him? Because I'd never seen him. I'd never seen him without full Voldemort garb. And obviously he still had a nose, but he always had a lot of green dots that were all over his face for CGI reasons to do later. So yeah, he was, but who's not going to be intimidated by Voldemort? Yeah. That's fair, definitely. But Alan was just, he had an incredibly slow way of talking, which was quite intimidating. But he was also dressed as Snape in all of his regalia. So yeah, but deep down, again, both lovely, charming, kind men.
Were all the kids doing impressions of the actors behind their backs? Like, did everybody have a Rickman?
No, we wouldn't dare. We wouldn't dare. No, I think some of us would like to try and do Hagrid or McGonagall, but I don't think any of us achieved much with that.
Right. Maggie Smith loves impressions of her. She's well known. I appreciate that, I'm sure.
I heard that.
If you run into Ralph Fiennes today, would you give him an awkward hug in honor of your awkward hug in the film?
Probably. Yeah, I think I probably would. Yeah. No, I mean, I've met Rafe several times since our awkward hug. Yeah, that awkward hug in the last scene, it's only really awkward because it was particularly unscheduled. And seeing someone as creepy as him offer you a sign of affection it's not something that anyone wants to see.
Do you remember like a transition point? I know, and you said this in interviews and in the book even, I think, and I totally get this. Like it all blends together. It must blend together the years, because you're with a lot of the same crew, cast, actors, and it's just like, it must be hard to differentiate. I mean, I was going to say, like, do you remember a period of time when like you were adult enough to realize the opportunity and excitement of working with these luminaries? Because I know in talking to some of your colleagues, like it was lost on them. Like it was lost on them at first, like that British royalty, acting royalty, was acting opposite them. But by the end, those last couple of films, you must have realized what an opportunity. You had a masterclass in front of you every day. Yes, definitely to some degree. I think that's maybe the best thing about the whole thing, though. I'm still realizing how big of how the legends are that we got to work with. I genuinely thought Gary Oldman just sort of worked at the studio as one of the cleaning department. He was so down dressed, and I think more to the point, it wasn't the case of them. No one was pompous enough to treat themselves like an actor. And also, of course, when you're 12 years old, you haven't seen a lot of Sir Richard Harris's work, or or Ralph Fiennes, or whoever else it may be. So you discover them. You discover the royalty, like you say, that you've been working with. I think that the nice part about that is, yes, we definitely learned a lot. Well, if we've learned anything as actors, then I'm sure a lot of it was
rubbed off from being around these fantastic actors and showing us how they jump into these crazy characters. If it's, you know, Helena doing Bellatrix or Michael doing Dumbledore, then we certainly learned a lot from that. But it was more a case of what they did off set.
Right.
People don't realize as well, when they're making a film, so much of the day is spent not filming, like just preparing or lining up or moving lights, which means a lot of downtime. So seeing how Robbie Coltrane will be the best example, how he liked to you know, make fun of everyone and just keep the environment, this working environment, so like friendly and such a pleasant place to be. That's the reason why I kind of think I consider myself extra lucky to be having a career in something that I love doing, because I think we were surrounded by just good people, great actors, but greater people.
The good combo. Yeah. You tell a bunch of great audition stories in the book, from of course the famous one that you know got you Draco in the first place.
Yeah.
But of course, me being, you know, a glutton for punishment, I love like the horror stories, and your sad experience with Anthony Hopkins must...
Classic Horowitz, this.
I mean, are you scarred forever from that? Like, can you ever... So this is an audition for the Hitchcock movie that he starred in as Hitchcock. And
yes.
You didn't quite have the interaction that maybe you had dreamed of with the great Anthony Hopkins.
No, no. This is not my finest hour when it came to auditioning. I got the sides very last minute. I knew I wasn't right for the role. I've never seen Psycho. The film was about the making of the film Psycho. I didn't know anything particularly well, but I knew I wasn't right for this. And I've very rarely called my agent before going into an audition and said, I really don't think this is for me. But I did on that occasion. And they said, just go in, as you always do, just show your face, show you know the work, and trot on. And then, I was whispered to by, I think it was Anna Faris, I swear she said, on the way to the audition, she said, he's in there. Who's in there? And I sat down across Sir Anthony Hopkins, and he knew straight away that I didn't know what I was doing. And he decided to go off book. He was like, let's put the scene down. Let's just test the water with the characters. And I proceeded to probably babble out the worst 3 minutes of improv in an awful American accent that anyone has ever seen. And he very kindly, he had a very graceful way of saying leave, which were just, thanks very much for your time. And I sheepishly tucked my tail and walked out of that one. But...
I can validate your parking if you'd like.
Yeah. Technically, I have worked with Sir Anthony, so I'm not sure if that goes on my resume.
Speaking of auditions, when I was going through the old IMDb, all the rumor control, here's an audition supposedly you were up for. Set the record straight. Were you one of the many actors up for Han Solo way back when? Did you get a shot?
Definitely not.
Oh, that would
be fun. Really? Was I really?
Look, there's rumors. Dan has been cast as Wolverine 10 different times, as you know. So, like,
okay, I'm not up to date with these things, but no, Solo at the moment.
Okay, you Star Wars guy? Not really.
No, I mean I am, but I'm not up to date. I've got my basics down. I'm waiting to watch it all on a big screen. And
it's overwhelming.
One rainy Sunday.
It's overwhelming. There's too much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Speaking of which, let's talk about like where the Potter universe is now, because I know you saw Cursed Child, I believe, right? You've seen that one. So when you go see a play like that, are you watching it with like a curiosity on like, oh, this is going to be interesting, see someone else interpret my character? Or are you thinking, oh, potential movie in 5 to 6 years, future employment, here's a scout?
No, but that's a good idea. I should think about that. No, it's quite nice. I actually went to go see Cursed Child again last week because I did my first run of theatre around the corner from Cursed Child. I skateboarded to work every day past the Cursed Child. Imagine how I felt. I was like, this is mental. I couldn't believe seeing. So I went to go see and support my Luca, who's playing my son Scorpius in it, and met James, who plays Draco, afterwards, and the three of us went out for for a pint of beer. So that was kind of a bit surreal. Three Malfoys around one around one pub table. But it was even weirder the fact that I was sitting there. I immediately texted Chris Columbus because I was just sat next to a family of, I want to say Australians, 6-7-year-old, head to toe in Slytherin garb, like the hat, the robes. Behind me, there was like a family of Hufflepuffs, and they can't have been more than 8, 9, 10 years old. They weren't born when these films were being made. And I couldn't help but text Chris Columbus going, how did we get here? This is mental. But then proceeded to watch them all wide-eyed, watching hours and hours of fabulous theatre. So, yeah, I get a bit of a tear in my eye, but I also just sit there in awe of how far it's come.
Yeah. If you were a betting man on this day, do you think you'll ever play that character again? I mean, everyone's gonna ask you this every day the rest of your life, as it will for Daniel and Emma and Rupert. But it's there. Cursed Child is there. It's a good play. It's a good story. Do you feel like
if I was a betting man, I would definitely consider it.
I do wonder though, because one would think it would have to be all of you or nothing, and I do wonder about Daniel and Emma in particular.
Well, wait, no, sorry, I'm coming back as Hermione.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not.
No, you're playing all the roles. You're doing it's a one-man Cursed Child.
I've already made it. It's a homemade film. Did it in the lockdown.
I mean,
can you imagine? No, yeah, that's not happening. I don't know. I don't think it will be an all or nothing thing. I think I would honestly, if they do continue to make more films or TV shows in the wizarding world, I'd be happy to pop up as an extra in the background. I don't have to, as much as I'd love to play Draco or Malfoy again. I'd still just love to be part of the world. That'd be cool enough.
I think they might give you more than a background extra role at this point. Don't sell yourself short. You talk about theater. Congratulations on your recent run, man. Did it feel like this is achievement unlocked? Like this is like a big that's a big one.
Yeah, it's definitely a big step forward in my sort of learning about acting. It's an obvious thing to say, but acting on stage was so vastly different from the method of acting on films. So it took me more than a few weeks of absolutely being terrified every morning, going, "There's no way I can do this. There's no way this is going to happen," to actually get to a place where I was really comfortable doing it. The moment where I actually started to enjoy it, those are the best nights ever. Actually going out there and knowing that you've rehearsed this enough that it's in your head. Those days were great. So yeah, thanks, man.
Are we going to get you to New York for either that one or a different one? Do you have your eye on another show?
I'm not saying no. It's a definite potential. I'd love to do more theatre, and obviously doing it on this side of the pond would be a bit of a dream come true.
Excellent. What about you could do the one man Beyond the Wand, telling your stories. Like you could have a Vegas residency. You could just sit there on a stool and tell your stories
through interpretive dance.
Exactly. I am the king of shitty ideas for you, Tom.
We'll just keep those trial balloons coming, Josh. We'll get there one day.
I'm just trying here. How's Willow doing? How's your dog?
She's hungry. She's good. She's good. She's great. She's a 4-year-old Labrador now. She still seems to think she's this big because she runs around the house just colliding into everything and everyone. But yeah, she's the friendliest creature in the world. She's a good reminder.
Yeah, my wife and I got a dog the last 2 years.
What have you got?
Oh my God, she's in the other room, but she's a pit mix and she's the sweetest. Lucy and Willow will meet one of these days. She's
How old is Lucy?
She's about 4 herself. Yeah.
Okay. Is she calm?
You seem wary. Don't be.
No. I mean, has she calmed down? Because I'm waiting for Willow to calm down, and it hasn't happened yet.
She has 2 modes: manic and just sleeping, 15 hours a day. So I of course prefer the sleepy version of Lucy, but manic has its own charms.
Willow's just manic or more manica.
Yeah.
And then level after the next. It's insane.
And you were saying earlier, like, one of the crazy things, like this unpredictable trajectory of your relationship with Potter is like, if anything, it feels like it's bigger than ever, which doesn't happen. I mean, do you find, like, are the parents and the kids both recognizing you now? Like, is it a different, has it evolved in the way that you're received by folks every day, or is it?
Definitely. Yeah, that's the strange thing about the stories, is that they're being passed down. Like, I always keep saying to my parents, like I said, most people weren't born when most fans that come up to me and say Potter or call me Draco, whatever, they weren't born when the first film was being made, which is insane to me, that they really are being passed down. Not like, just not that I want to compare it to anything else, like, but I feel like all the Jurassic Park films are still going to be passed down forever. Like, there's still some of my favorite movies, but there's something about the Potter stories, books, films, plays, whatever, all of it that seems to be truly like transgressing. Like, there was a couple in the Cursed Child. It was a grandfather and his daughter. She can't have been more than 7. He looked more like 77. Both head to toe in Gryffindor clobber. I'm not sure what else could do that.
Nope. You're part of a phenomenon. You always will be, and I'm glad that you wear it with grace and humility and good humor. You're a good emissary for Potter and for all the good that it's done. It's always good to catch up with you, man. Everybody should check out. We touched on like 2% of the fun stories in this book. Beyond the Wand is the book from Mr. Tom Felton. Check it out for just great remembrances of the making of, I don't know, the most iconic franchise of the last 50 years, maybe ever, who knows? And it's got some serious stuff in there too. It's not a self-help book, as you said, but there are lessons to be learned, I think.
Well said.
Thanks for the time, man. And I hope to see you and Willow in person one of these days.
Thank you, brother Josh. Always good to speak to you, mate. Send my love. And look forward to getting the pups together one day soon.
There you go. All right. Thanks, bud.